Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the Watch Coalition and Rebuild Woonsocket for the next workshop of the Woonsocket Initiative's Get Charged Up series. We are here to get powered on, get charged up, and to get plugged in. The Watch Coalition is a local nonprofit organization based in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Our mission at the Watch Coalition is to transform the city of Woonsocket into a safe, vibrant, and unified community by promoting social equity, building a cohesive multicultural community, and nurturing intergenerational leadership. We had done a participatory budgeting practice with community leaders to build community leadership skills and asked residents if they had a pool of money, what would they do with that money that would have a positive impact on the community? They came up with different project ideas and then voted on which ideas would be the most impactful and that were the best to implement. So the ideas that came out from this participatory budgeting exercise is what gave birth to the Woonsocket Initiative. The Woonsocket Initiative has three components. The first component is Get Powered On. That's all about building local infrastructure to make sure that we as a community and as an organization are ready to take on the next few years and are building our capacity to continue doing the great work that we're doing in Woonsocket. The second component is getting charged up. We want people to be fired up and ready to go and to be able to make changes to benefit themselves, their families, and their communities. And we're doing that through education and trainings. So this is part of that Get Charged Up component where we're doing a series of workshop trainings about civic education, personal wellness, family health, financial empowerment, civic leadership, and community organizing. So stay connected for the next part of the Get Charged Up training series. And then the last component of the Woonsocket Initiative is getting plugged in. We want people to be connected to the resources and the services that they need to be able to live healthy lives and support their families. So whether it's folks getting help signing up for food stamps or for Section 8 housing, or signing up their children for after-school programming, we want to make sure that people are aware of the amazing resources that the City of Woonsocket has to offer, and we can help you get plugged into those different resources. If you want to learn more about the Woonsocket Initiative or sign up for any of these, you're going to go to tiny.cc/onesocket, or you can scan that QR code and it'll bring you to our registration page. So with that being said, this is a continuation of the Charged Up Civic Engagement series, and we're so happy to be partnering with our friends at Rebuild Woonsocket. Rebuild Woonsocket is a local organization whose mission is to work towards an equitable, just, and vibrant community and a livable future by building a people-powered, community-oriented movement and transforming Woonsocket politics so our city puts the needs of working-class people first. So together, we've been really glad to have Kristina Contreras Fox here to present today's workshop. She is an organizer and an advocate dedicated to realizing an equitable and just world through grassroots power and public policy. She also serves as a city councilor for the city of Woonsocket. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Councilor Contreras Fox.
Hello, muy buenas tardes. Thank you, Nwando, for having me tonight. I'm so excited to facilitate this training and share my expertise on how to engage in the democratic process to realize the just and equitable change that we want to see in our city. So, without further ado, if we could kick it off with my slide deck, please. Oh, I think we're talking about Are we talking about the state agenda first or?
We can get to that at the end, actually.
Okay,
So we'll
sounds
start
good.
with you.
Sounds good. Excellent. So I'm here tonight to talk to everyone about how to advocate for change here in Woonsocket. So like I said, we can realize the just and equitable change that we want to see in our community. This is something that's particularly a passion of mine and has been ever since I was a little kid. Growing up in Smithfield, I've been passionate about social justice and equity and equality for all from day one, which brought me into wanting to serve my community by being an elected official. You know, for many, many years, I was an advocate, was a lobbyist, an organizer, a director of public policy, but I had never been on this side of the aisle, never had a vote or the ability to actually introduce policy. So when I saw that there were going to be many open seats in 2024, which is when I ran, I said, well, if I'm passionate about this change and I'm passionate about my community, no time like the present. So I rose up and ran and I won. And now I'm speaking to you as your city councilor. But I'm also, first and foremost, an advocate and an organizer. And I know that the way to make change happen is for all of us to work together and organize together. But it's not just enough to build a band of folks. It's not just enough to say, this is what we want. You have to have direction. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to be on target, persistent, and solid with what you want to see happen. So I'm going to be talking about how do you speak with decision makers to influence or to realize the end results, the decisions that you want to see. And this is something that is a huge tool here in our city, democratic engagement, because we're a tiny city comparatively. Right? When you think about municipalities like Los Angeles or New York City or Boston or even Providence, where we're talking millions or hundreds of thousands of people, here in Woonsocket, we're under 44,000. So it doesn't take millions of people the way it might in Los Angeles or San Antonio mobilizing to get a bill passed or to get some change made or to block bad legislation. Here in Woonsocket, it doesn't take millions. It might take dozens or scores. It might even take one or two people, right? But you need to know where those decisions are happening. You need to know when they're happening and how you can best organize and mobilize to influence those decisions. And like I said, realize the change that we want. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So this is a picture here of the current Woonsocket City Council. If you've never seen the rostrum before in action, from left to right, it's Councilman Contreras, Councilman Harmon, Councilwoman Gonzalez, Council President Gendron, the City Clerk, Kristina Harmon. Can't see her, but you can see her hair. Is Vice President, Council Vice President Denise Sierra, Councilman Dubois, and then myself with ponytail, Councilor Contreras Fox. But these are the folks who make the big decisions in our community. When it comes to legislation, we're the ones who are introducing legislation, debating it, passing or not passing. So we're the folks that you want to talk to. So what's one of the biggest ways that you can get our attention and deliver your message and let your concerns be known? That's speaking at public comment. Oh, next slide, please. All right, put the public in public comment. So if you want decision makers to know what you want them to do, you got to go and tell them. And one of the best ways that I found personally in Woonsocket to connect with those decision makers, AKA the city councilors, is come to city council meetings and speak during public comment. So how do you do that? First of all, you got to know that the city council meets the first and third Monday of every month at 7 o'clock. City Hall is 169 Main Street. Pretty much everybody knows where City Hall is on Main Street. It's this big, beautiful historic building pictured. Excuse me. But during these council meetings, like I said, they happen on the first and the third Monday of every month. We have a part of the agenda that's called public comment, where members of the public, any member of the public, not just Woonsocket residents or even just Woonsocket voters, they can come to the podium and address the entire city council in person. So this happens right at the beginning of the meeting. So you really want to make sure that you get there pretty early. If you want to speak during public comment, I recommend to people don't get there any later than 7:15 just to be on the safe side. So once you're there, you will have 5 minutes exactly when it's your turn to speak. Just know you may or may not get questions when you're speaking at the podium. I will say it's very rare that people get questions, but one thing people might be asking or might be a little afraid of and might prevent you from speaking is, well, if I get questions and I don't know the answer, isn't that going to make me look, isn't that going to discredit me or look like I don't know what I'm talking about? Absolutely not. what I found the best thing to say is what's honest. If someone asks you a question you don't know the answer to, say, thank you for that thoughtful question. I don't know the answer right now, but I've written it down. I'm going to research and then I'm going to get back to you. And I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible. And as long as you do that, as long as you get back to that counselor, that person who asked you the question within 24 to 48 hours, at least within a few days, you can still continue the conversation, continue your advocacy without any loss in your credibility or looking like you're over your head. Because trust me, it's never great to say, oh, well, here's an answer when you're not really sure or you don't really know. Better to be honest and just say, I don't know, but I've written it down and I'm going to get back to you. So, like I said, you can come up to the podium during public comment. You get 5 minutes to speak. Also, it's important to note that much like this presentation, city council meetings get broadcast simultaneously and recorded on YouTube. So when you're speaking during public comment, that's going to be broadcast to everybody who's tuning in on the YouTube channel. And you can also access that recording and cut it up to send it around to people. So if somebody asks you, hey, what's going on? What are the big things happening with you? And you want to get them involved with what it is you're advocating for, you can send them that little clip and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. And I think that if you think this is important, you should come with me to the next council meeting, or let's get coffee and talk a little bit more about why this matters to me. And I'd love to hear your opinion. And I will say too, the more that you show up to these council meetings, the better. Now, council happens after hours. Like I said, it's Mondays, first and third Monday, 7 o'clock. So you can have dinner. There's a little bit of time. I mean, granted, as long as you provided that you're working first shift. But the more you can attend these, the better it will, the better for your advocacy. Because I'm sure there are folks who are watching this that have seen a few city council meetings. And if you keep watching the city council meetings, you'll find that there are people who show up time and time and time again. They might not be advocating for the most compassionate or most economically sound policies, but their concerns, as you will see, tend to get picked up and addressed because they have a consistent presence. And they're not lobbyists, they're not paid to be there. They are voters who are concerned and they have a vision that they want to see. They have change or lack of change that they want to see. So they show up. It works for them. If we show up, we can turn that tide. And of course, the more you can show up, the better. And the more you bring people with you, the better. Now, one other little pro tip I want to slide in here. So council starts at 7 o'clock on the dot. The council president bangs that gavel and we are off into the agenda and we're conducting business. However, if you want to talk to the counselors, show up before the council meeting starts. There are some people who will come in 5 minutes before 7, but there are quite a few of us who get there early. I like to get there at 6:30. As I just like to talk to folks who are there. It's a great chance for me to be able to connect with people that I need to see. It's also time for me to write notes down and catch up on the agenda, right? But I'm there early. A lot of my colleagues come in early and my office is my desk. So feel free to show up ahead of the meetings. And I will say, so the council meets first and third Monday. Those are the only meetings where there will be public comment. In between the first and third Monday, council will hold work sessions. For example, there's going to be a work session this upcoming Monday, the 28th at 7 o'clock. We're going to be talking about homelessness, in particular, I believe the camping ban. So you can come and attend that meeting. However, at that work session and all other work sessions, there is no public comment. However, at work sessions, before work sessions and before standard council meetings, if you can show up a little bit early, even just 15 minutes early, you have a really good chance at being able to get FaceTime and have a quick conversation, meaningful conversation, I'll bet quick, with your city council members. That's also a good thing to do if you plan on speaking during public comment. coming ahead of time, introducing yourself and saying, hey, and I will also be speaking a little bit more about this, the reason I'm here during public comment, but I'd love to meet with you after, right? It's a good way to, long story short, if you show up early, you can get FaceTime and get more time to advocate, make your point be known, and also learn more, build that relationship with a counselor, learn where they stand and how you need to mobilize them so that they're ultimately on your side. Excuse me. All right, so that covers speaking during public comment. Don't ever hesitate to come to these meetings, particularly to come speak. City Hall is the people's hall, just like the State House is the people's house. But outside of the city council meetings, you definitely want to be advocating. A lot of work happens and a lot of decision making happens in between council meetings. So now I'm going to talk about some of the best ways to effectively connect with decision makers in between those meetings. Next slide, please. Thank you. So advocate for your community by advocating to decision makers. And right here on the left-hand side is the contact info for all of us, right? From the council president, all 7 of us here. Also, quickly at the bottom is the main website for the Woonsocket City Council. So log in, click on this for all of your city council needs. This is where to find agendas, minutes, contact info, link to the YouTube live stream or YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera. But so these are the folks that you want to connect with. These are the folks that you want to be emailing and contacting, or I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So I said, these are the folks you want to be contacting. How can you contact them? There's some pretty standard basic ways, and I'm sure people are already saying out loud to themselves: email, write letters, and make phone calls. Okay. So email, write letters, make phone calls. Do this when you want them to take a particular action on a bill, right? You want them to support, or a resolution ordinance, right? If you want them to support or oppose or stay neutral, call, email, write letters to them when you want them to be aware of a situation that you want the city council to address, right? Contact them. And also you can contact them if you are working. So the Watch Coalition works on a lot of issues related to city council. So the Watch Coalition will send, so if the Watch Coalition does a survey of neighbors in Woonsocket, how do you feel about issue X? They'll then send the results of that survey into the city council. You can do the same thing. I've gotten plenty of emails from people who said, I took a survey of my neighbors and they all say that we want to see X change. And granted, when I get those emails, they're not always the most humane or compassionate or sensical, frankly, but I get them and I read them, and my colleagues read them as well, and they stay in our minds. So this is a way to reach out and to let folks know. So what I'm trying to say here is contact your legislators, contact your city council members when you want them to vote a particular way, work on a particular issue, or be aware of a particular issue in general. And also, too, you don't want to just be contacting when you need something. The best way to engage in the process is to engage consistently. And the best way to engage is to talk to the counselors, build up that relationship, right? The more that you start to talk with them about the issues that you care about and the change you want to see, especially since many of the issues we care about and a lot of the change we want to see, I mean, this is movement work that we are engaged in, right? These are a lot of issues and problems that don't have an overnight resolution or even a 1-year period resolution, right? We just need to get the ball rolling. So if you continue to talk with folks, so for example, the council just passed an approval of a new homelessness resource hub and shelter on Cumberland Street. It's going to be run by Open Doors. That's a really important transformative policy change that we just accomplished, but it cannot be the last thing. And the way that the council will take direction is by who reaches out to the council. So if you want to see more housing built, if you want to see more inclusive zoning, if you want to see us being more vocal about state legislation that supports housing production or ameliorating cost of housing and incomes, et cetera, reach out and talk to us and continue to talk to us. So another thing that you can be doing in addition to emailing, writing letters, making phone calls, et cetera, email, write a letter, make a phone call, ask them to meet with you. Ask them to meet with you. Ask us to grab coffee. Invite us to events. I get invited to a lot of events, mostly end of year celebrations, awards, etc. Very, very good things to invite counselors to. But if you have a community group, even if you have something like a book club, but your book club is really, really passionate about childhood literacy or just really passionate about people reading in general here in Woonsocket, invite the counselors to come to your meeting. Invite the counselors to come to your events. It doesn't always have to be the big end of year celebration. If something is going on or happening that you think city council needs to see or be a part of, your counselors need to see and be a part of because it's going to help them better understand what the community needs, who is in the community, and just what they need to be focused on, invite them out. And also, not for nothing, but as you're doing, engaging in all of these advocacy activities, writing to them, emailing them, meeting with them, calling them, asking them their opinion, asking for their support, etc. Not for nothing, the people who don't get back to you, right? The people who are, or every time you reach out to them, they have something very negative to say or rude, or they don't listen to you. We have elections every 2 years. Then you know who you want, maybe a little bit more about who you want to vote for. And I will say too, if you have an experience where you're reaching out to a counselor and they don't want to give you the time of day, or they want to go out of their way to be rude and cruel to you, you can run for office too, right? So, but like I said, these are all strategies. These are all things that you can do. And if you employ them consistently, you will start to see change. You'll start to see progress. And again, bring more people along with you, right? Encourage other folks. If you say, hey, I wrote to the council about us having bus shelters here in the city. Here's what I sent to them, my BFFs who we get together and we complain about the state's lack of care around transit. I sent this to them. If you guys want, pull what I wrote and email them, right? And then finally, one little thing I want to add about meeting with decision makers, meeting with electeds here. So to connect with the city council, you connect with us directly. We don't have any administrators or anything like that. So just call and email us at the contact info you see here. However, if you want to connect with Mayor Beauchamp, I think everyone has the mayor's number. It's on the city hall website, etc. But in my opinion, the most effective way to get on the mayor's calendar is by emailing his executive administrator, and that's the phenomenal Sue Gollin. And Sue's email address is right here, sgollin@woonsocketri.gov. She's the best person to connect with. She handles all of his scheduling. She is the person steering the ship on that. So reach out to her if you want to connect with the mayor. So those are, excuse me. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot one more important thing. Another good time to reach out to your council members is when they do something that you like. If they take a vote that you support, if they spoke out on an issue in a way that you support, especially because I know there are a lot of people watching and there are a lot of people in Rebuild Woonsocket and Watch Coalition that have many, many, many hours and years in the trenches here in Woonsocket politics. So if you see a counselor who has maybe gone out of their comfort zone to be supportive of a community, to act in a progressive way, etc., reach out and tell them thank you. I'm not saying you got to say thank you because you got to right? But when we hear that we are electeds, we are representatives of the community. So when the community reaches out and says, hey, keep doing this, people are going to keep doing that, especially if maybe it's not in their values to begin with. This is how people change their minds. This is how people evolve. Or this is how people tell you who they are and their lack of evolution. And then, you got to find somebody else, right? You run yourself. But seriously, I mean, I get lots of very angry emails when I do things that people don't like. But I don't get a lot of emails when I take a vote or I speak out in a way that people might support. I mean, granted, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I feel sad. My comrades in the community reach out and have my back, and thank you very much for that, right? But I'm just saying, I notice, and it matters to me, it's significant to me when I hear back from people that's positive and say, hey, keep doing this, counselor, keep voting this way. So reach out when people do something that you like, just as much as you are vigilant in reaching out when they do something that is just not okay, or not what you like and not the change you want to see, and you see it moving Woonsocket backwards. So talked about how to contact counselors, who they are, how to reach them, the best ways to reach them. So now I want to talk about how do you really get this change realized. So it can feel sometimes, especially in this city, it's a very conservative place. And I mean that in the more traditional sense of the word, the same way you conserve water, right? You want to keep things kind of the same. You want to keep things like steady how they are. Sometimes conservation is stability, right? And yeah, there are traditions that matter, but life is change. Change is inevitable, and lack of change results in bad things happening. Change that you didn't like, that you could have avoided had you been more on the ball. So that's why it's so important for electeds, right, for city councils and the mayor and our state officials to be passing policy that is directly connected to the community. The community is engaged in the discussion, because otherwise us legislators, we're creating policy in a vacuum, and that's not based in reality. So it can seem really isolating sometimes when things don't want to move forward or things seem to stay really stuck. But just remember, you are not alone. And engaging in the democratic process, aka talking to your elected officials, telling them what you want them to work on, how you want them to be voting, etc. And then getting your friends, family, and community in this is how we win. Porque el pueblo unido jamás será vencido. The people united will never be defeated, because it's organizing together that will realize the change that our community needs, right? So if you feel passionate, I mean, if you watched this past Monday's hearing and you felt so outraged at this ban on public camping and overnight camping, right? Which is really, I mean, if there's a fine in question or a court appearance in question, if you commit an activity, it's criminalizing activity. If this made you feel a way, know that you're not alone. And us by ourselves, as you can see, this classic image of the fish. I mean, if you've been to Union Hall, you've seen this image up and down, right? But when we as fish like are swimming, not looking around, not realizing how many of us are, we swim together, we're bigger than the forces trying to consume us. So talk to your family, talk to your friends, get them involved in democratic action with you. So all of these things that you just learned about speaking at public comment, going and lobbying, because what's lobbying? It's just talking to your elected official about a position you want them to have, right? So lobbying before city council meetings, writing to them, writing to us, calling us, asking them to meet. Tell your friends about it. Ask them to come with you. Hey, I'm going to go speak at the city council meeting. Will you come with me? Just to have my back. Could really use your support. Or hey, I invited Councilor Contreras Fox to get coffee. I want to talk to her about this issue, that I've been talking to you about. Would you come with me? Or do you know any of your friends that also care about this? You want to come to the meeting with me, right? Another thing to do, stay involved with Woonsocket. You don't even need to build an organization from scratch. An incredible community-based, community organizing and advocacy agency already exists, or an organization exists. Stay involved with Woonsocket. Tell people about what's happening and bring them in, call them in and get them to come with you, right? Because the more that we do this, the more that we will be the ones who are, I mean, dare I say it? We'll be the ones calling the shots. We'll be the ones in charge, because this is still a democracy. And in a democracy, majority rules. And if the majority of the people are speaking up for the needs of the people, well, then it'll be people power that wins the day. So these are the things that we should be, in my opinion, focusing on. In my long and storied career as an advocate, they are the strategies that I've seen be the most effective and impactful. And again, in a community like Woonsocket, which is small, 44,000 people. I won election to city council with just shy of 4,000 votes. And I won my election by 20 votes, right? These are not, I mean, listen, 20 people, if you put 20 people in a room, like that's a lot of people, right? But when you think relatively, like going back to my first example of like a city like Los Angeles, where they have to mobilize 1 million voters to get the city council to support an initiative that supports the community. Here in Woonsocket, where the number of voters who elect our councilors, our mayor, is so much smaller, these electeds are so much more keenly aware of what voters want. So if we are mobilizing, the majority of people support this, we're the ones who are going to be guiding and directing, and we're the ones who are going to be determining which way the currents go in our city. So I know I said, sorry, Nwando and Alex, I said I would pause for questions, and I just got so into it. Are there any questions in the chat or any comments before we roll on to the next section of the agenda?
No, I would say go through, finish, and we can have some questions at the end.
Excellent. Well,
Thank you.
I've got one more slide. I think I have one more slide. No, I don't. That's it. Et voilà. J'ai fini. So questions, any questions?
One question that has come up is about ordinances in Woonsocket and how residents can be able to influence ordinances. So if a resident has an idea for like a new policy that they would like to see being enacted, how would they go about making that happen?
Reach out to your city council members and ask them to work on this with you. Ask them to work with you to write a resolution that's then introduced. And as to who you start with anybody. And if the person you start with says no, call the next person. And if that person says no, call the next person. So, and if they all say no, then they all say no. And maybe that's something that you can run on. If this is an issue that you're seeing a lot of your neighbors and friends and family caring about and wanting to see action on. But considering the people who are at this table, I'm going to go ahead and say that there's at least one city councilor out of the 7 that would want to work with you. But that is the whole purpose of the city council, is to pass policy that the city needs and is asking for. So reach out to them and ask them to work on this with you. That's a great thing to contact your city council members about. Oh, actually, I will say too, that's how we've seen people, that's a great thing to come and speak about at public comment. This year, I've seen many people come to the podium and say, hey, I care about this issue. Like, for example, the Friends of the Woonsocket Dog Park. They came to a council meeting and said, we're a community organization. We use the dog park. We have these concerns. We'd love to see these changes. And can the city work with us? And they brought it to the city's attention because, you know, at the meetings, it's not just the city council that attends, it's the mayor and pretty much all of his directors, somewhere his cabinet members, right? So when the Friends of the Dog Park came and brought up their concerns, the next day the mayor had somebody out there starting to put into action the changes that these Woonsocket residents had asked for. So come to public comment, speak about this, reach out, call, write an email, send a letter, ask to meet. But however, whatever one of these ways you want to engage, and also you can also do all of them, you know, not for nothing, full court press never hurts. But just ask your city council to work on this with you and ask them to introduce this, whatever the issue is, your ordinance is.
Another question is about the delineation of power between the city council and the mayor. So what are some of the things that the city council has jurisdiction over? And what are some of the things that the mayor has control and jurisdiction over?
Great question. Ooh, great question. Because this is the 3 branches of government. So the mayor is, we all know 3 branches of government, judicial, legislative, and executive. Judicial, obviously, our courts here, you know, traffic court, municipal court, etc. The mayor represents the executive branch, and the council represents the legislative branch. So the council is responsible for ultimately voting on and passing laws. This also includes the budget. The mayor, while he can introduce legislation by working with a city council member, so he can say to myself or to Councilwoman Harmon or Councilman Contreras, can you introduce this on the administration's behalf? This is also something that happens at a state level. You'll see legislation, you'll see bills that are introduced in the House and the Senate, but in parentheses, it'll say by the order of Lieutenant Governor, by the order of the governor, you know, by an order of the executive branch of the state. Excuse me. But the mayor does not have a vote on the council. He does have the ability to veto legislation. Of course, the council can override, but 2 of the mayor's most important powers or most important responsibilities are writing the budget and also making appointments. Excuse me. So all of the department heads, human services, planning, solicitor, etc., they get appointed by the mayor, or I believe a solicitor gets voted on, excuse me. But if they are a city director, like director of public works, they serve at the pleasure of the mayor. The mayor appoints, unappoints. The mayor also has appointment power when it comes to different commissions and boards in the city. So the Affordable Housing Commission, Water Board, etc. The mayor is the person who makes those appointments. But again, the other thing is he drafts the budget. He drafts the budget and sends it to the council for our approval. Now, once he sends it to the council, then it's out of his hands, with the exception of he could veto it once it comes to his desk after the council has passed it. But when it comes to the budget or any other legislation, it's the council's purview entirely. So the council is pretty powerful when it comes to ordinances and resolution and like public policy here in the city. But the mayor is definitely a decision maker, a big time decision maker. And he's also somebody who has council experience. Before he was the mayor, I believe he was the president of the city council. So he has a lot of understanding about council dynamics and how the sausage gets made or how the tempeh gets made, more or less. So he's a really good person to connect with, and certainly not somebody to forget when it comes to support for an ordinance or an initiative, et cetera. And that's also how the state works too. You know, the governor is the one who drafts the budget and who makes all the appointments of cabinet members, et cetera. But the General Assembly is responsible for passing the budget, and the Senate's also responsible for making appointments to judges, but it's the General Assembly that is creating, debating on, and ultimately passing legislation. So that same dynamic exists on the municipal level as well.
So speaking of that, at the state level, the General Assembly meets from January through June. And so any like legislation that has to get introduced by a certain point between the months of January and June. At the local level in Woonsocket, the city council meets year round. Are there any timeframes of when ordinances can be introduced or can be passed, or is that something that is throughout the calendar year?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. Thank you. So we pass legislation throughout the calendar year. I should qualify when I said we meet first and third Monday. We typically meet first and third Monday, but in the summer months, we'll meet once a month. That's something, so you can actually go onto the city council website and get the full calendar of all of our meetings. But there is something that is very important to be aware of when it comes to introducing ordinances. In order for something to appear on the consent calendar at a city council meeting, it has to be received by the city council clerk Wednesday by 4 p.m. Wednesday, the Wednesday before the meeting. So, and I want to bring up a calendar so I don't get this wrong. So, for example, when we have a meeting on Monday, May 5th. Anything that will be voted on that meeting has to be into the city clerk. Not just an outline of what they want to introduce, but like a fully baked ordinance proposal that has to be into the city clerk by 4 p.m. Wednesday, the 30th. So just remember that. Now, if you miss that window, you will just have to wait till the next council meeting. So if you miss the deadline of the 30th for the 5th, you would need to introduce it by 4 p.m. Wednesday, the 14th, for it to be in the meeting on the 26th. I think that's right math. But anywho, that's a very, very important thing to be aware of. This deadline for introductions in terms of new business on each council meeting, at each council meeting. So just always keep that in the back of your mind when you're working with a counselor on legislation. You know, you always have to abide by that, that 4 p.m. Wednesday before deadline. So, and one thing I will say, and please, I don't think this is too in the weeds, but another thing to be aware of, part of the drafting process is that the law department, so City Solicitor Lepizera, Deputy Solicitor Fong, they have to review the draft and they have to make corrections. So they're looking to make sure that it conforms to all existing state statute, federal statute, et cetera, that it's correctly worded. And by that, I mean, literally, like they're looking for typos, misspellings, wrong dates, et cetera. And they're going to, get it ready to be introduced to the clerk. So all of that has to happen before 4 p.m. Wednesday. So you want to make sure that you are baking that into your time or to your process too, about when legislation needs to go in order to be voted on. So, and I will say, if anybody wants to talk a little bit more at length than this and to ask more questions, because there's a lot of information thrown pretty quickly, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love talking about this, and I will get as weedy or as 50,000, 100,000 foot view as you want to get. So any other questions?
Something that I'll ask, and I just happened to pull in the city council meeting calendar. So
Perfect.
that is in case folks are curious and they want a screenshot. And it's also available on the city's website. So these are all the meeting dates and then the deadline dates. So this would be, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is the deadline by which somebody can propose a topic for the meeting agenda. Is that correct?
Yes. So actually, and thank you for framing it that way. So in addition to coming and speaking at public comment, you as a resident of Woonsocket can petition the clerk to speak at a city council meeting. So we have a section of the agenda called petitions and communications. That's a chance for counselors to be able to give updates about things they're working on, to speak on a topic. Like I was on the agenda for petitions and communications this past Monday to share information about an Earthia event that I hosted. But being part of the petitions and communications is also something that's available to Woonsocket residents. So these deadline dates here are deadlines for legislation to be submitted via the process that I just discussed. But also, if you want to address the city council, and beyond the agenda, beyond just public comment, you would need to just submit your request by this deadline. So thank you for that question, Wanda. That's a really good one.
Another question, this is something that I'm wondering about. So our membership at the Watch Coalition, because we are an intergenerational organization, a significant portion of our members are youth. As a matter of fact, I think a majority of our organization is youth, and every committee that we have is young people. And a lot of the actions that we take and the decisions that we make are initiated or driven by young people in the city of Woonsocket. How impactful, because many of them are not old enough to vote. So how impactful is it for young people to advocate at City Hall or to reach out to their city councilors, despite them not being old enough to vote? And similarly, other Woonsocket residents who might not be citizens or who might not be registered or active voters, how impactful is it for young people, non-voters, people who aren't eligible to vote, to also be advocating at City Hall?
Oh, it's hugely impactful. It's hugely impactful. Like I'm not going to blow smoke and act like counselors don't pay special attention to voters, because I mean, what's the one thing every elected official is doing all day, every day? They're all running for re-election. I mean, we kind of have to, because especially city council, our terms are only 2 years. So every other year is an election year, right? So you have to be cognizant of that. Excuse me. So they do pay special attention to voters, because those are the people ultimately going to ensure that we can keep our jobs if we like them and want them. However, people, like, issues will die if they are not in the public attention, and you do not have to be a voter or a citizen to bring things into the public eye and bring things to people's attention, because that's the only way that folks who are voters will learn about things. So, and I will say too, for folks who are currently not citizens or who are below the age of 18, excuse me, just because you are not a voter right now, does in 2 years or 5 years or that might not be the case. My mother became a citizen when I was in high school. My mother's family is originally from Guatemala. They immigrated from Guatemala City right to Federal Hill. And she didn't become a citizen until I was in high school. Excuse me. But as soon as she did, she is now the most engaged voter that you have ever seen, right? And yeah, it took her like a few decades to become a citizen, but now she's a voter. And if you are 17 right now, you will be 18 when it comes to the November election in 2026. And also, take note that Rhode Island's voter registration law allows for 16 and 17-year-olds to register to vote. And so that way, the second you turn 18, you will automatically be registered. Also, too, when you get your license, and this is true of anybody, when you get your driver's license, when you either for the first time or you are renewing it, you have the option to check the box to say, yes, I want to register to vote, or I want to update my voter registration. And you can become a registered voter that way. So, excuse me, things change, right? The way that you can be involved in this moment now is not necessarily the way you'll be able to be involved in a couple of years. You know, you'll be a voter in that case. But again, even if you are not a registered voter, if you live here and you see something that's happening that you want changed, or you see something that needs to happen, especially if you know that it ain't just you can be the one bringing it to everyone's attention. I mean, the journey of 1,000 steps begins with one. Any fight, any campaign to organize to make things better started with one person who then talked to another person, who talked to another person. And if you are not a voter right now, you probably know voters though. And that's where all of these organizing strategies and tools that you have because of this training come into use and come in handy. You know, like my mom, when she was, and I'm she's my mom's example, she's my mom, but when she wasn't a voter and she cared about something, she talked to my dad because my dad is from Smithtown, my dad's from Kings Park, New York. You know, he grew up on Long Island. He's been a voter since age 18. She would talk to him and he would talk to her too and say, what do you think about this? How should I vote? What do you think is important here? You know, like she organized him. She raised awareness about things that were important. You have that same power. Even somebody that you know who's not a voter, but is passionate about change and is thinking, oh my God, how can I get involved? What can I do? I mean, granted, I don't want to act like it is always safe to speak up. I mean, that is not the time we're living in, unfortunately. It's very, very, very scary, right? But if you feel compelled to speak and to use your voice like this, do it, use it. It will make a difference. It will make a change and it will not go unnoticed. So, but thank you for the question. That's a really, really great one. It's not only voters and it's not citizens that are have been responsible for some of the most profound and necessary changes in our community here in Woonsocket and also writ large, you know, throughout this country and the state. So get involved because these are community leaders. These are members of the community who will continue to lead change, you know, but just stay involved. It does make a difference. Any other questions?
Not seeing any other questions come in, so I think we'll be ready to move on to the next phase of this presentation. But thank you so much for this information. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm feeling charged up right now.
Yes, yes. I'm so happy to hear it. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this space. Like, I feel charged up too. Like it can feel a little lonely sometimes on that rostrum. But it's being in spaces like this with my fellow comrades and community members that like really fills my soul and like keeps my feet, you know, firmly on the earth to keep moving ahead to do this work. So thank you very much for having me. This has been so great.
Thank you. Before we end this, we do want to take this opportunity to talk about what are some of the things that we can put our energy to, because hopefully those of you who are watching are feeling just as charged up as I am. And there are opportunities at the local level. So we encourage you to go to city council meetings, like she said. The dates are up on the screen. So the upcoming meeting is on May 5th. We hope to see you at City Hall, May 5th at 7 o'clock, or like she said, come early so that you can be able to talk to the city councilors before the meeting starts. But look at these meeting dates, take that screenshot, save it, or you can always refer back to this presentation or to the city's website to get those meeting dates, first and third Mondays of the month. And also, we want to talk about what's happening at the state level. We recognize that, of course, Woonsocket is a part of Rhode Island, and so policy happening at the state level affects us too. And we also have the opportunity to influence policy, not just in our own backyards, but across the state of Rhode Island. So at the Watch Coalition, we have identified a few pieces of legislation that are of particular importance to us. These are issues that have been elevated by our community members, by our youth, and by people who have been impacted by some of these different concepts. And so there are 5 in particular policies happening at the state level that we are paying attention to, and we encourage you to do the same. The first one is House Bill 5849 and the sister Senate Bill 0697. And this bill is for the health equity zones. It would direct EOHHS, which is the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, to assemble and maintain Rhode Island's Health Equity Zone Initiative, which are community-led collaborations that identify health inequities and figure out local strategies to implement long-term solutions. So we are huge supporters of the Health Equity Zone Initiative, and the Health Equity Zone Initiative has been huge supporters of us, and we really want to encourage the continuity. So we're supporting the Health Equity Zone bill. We're also supporting the equity impact statements. You might remember a few years ago, the Racist Policy Review Advisory Board discussed the concept of doing equity analyses at the local level in Woonsocket. And unfortunately, that was not approved by the city council back then, but a very similar initiative is being campaigned for at the state level. And so this bill would require that equity impact statements are written for proposed state legislation and budgets to take a look at how the proposed budget or how the proposed policy would impact all Rhode Islanders and make sure that no one gets left behind, that no population is forgotten about or is unfairly impacted by these new decisions. So this is Senate Bill 0805. We are also supporting Senate Bill 0359 and House Bill 5436. And this is the Assault Weapons Ban Act. This would restrict the sale and possession of assault weapons, which have high magazine capacity or have the opportunity to have extended and things attached to them like chainsaws. We don't think anybody needs a chainsaw on their gun. And so while we respect people's right to own guns, we are concerned about weapons that are designed for mass shootings and that are designed for high fatalities. And especially knowing that, unfortunately, our city here in Woonsocket has been heavily hit by violence and growing gun violence in recent years, this is of particular importance to us. So we are supporting the Rhode Island Assault Weapons Ban Act of 2025. Some additional bills that we are supporting is the House Joint Resolution 5515 and the Senate Joint Resolution 0820. This is the same-day voter registration law. This would allow eligible Rhode Islanders to vote to decide whether or not Rhode Islanders can register to vote on the same day as an election. So we recognize that some people who might not have been fully registered or not be properly registered show up on election day excited to vote and are unfortunately turned away. And so we're creating additional barriers that are reducing the number of people who are able to participate in our elections and to participate in our democracy. And we want to maximize that. We want as many people who are eligible to vote as possible. So one way to encourage that is to eliminate this barrier and allow people to register to vote on the same day as an election. So we are definitely supporting same-day voter registration. And lastly, this is something that was elevated by our youth ambassadors in particular, is the Educational Equity Bill. This would mandate that public K through 12 schools have the 1 to 250 ratio of mental health workers to students. This ratio was developed by the National Association of Social Workers, and they determined that in order to effectively assure the mental well-being of a student body, that there needs to be at least one full-time social worker or mental health worker for every 250 students. And so the Watch Coalition's youth ambassadors actually elevated this and proposed this as something to happen in Woonsocket schools, and have been trying to work at having that happen at the local level. And this bill is being heard at the state level. So we're really excited to support this, to make sure that our students have what they need to be able to thrive academically by giving them the supports that they need to be healthy mentally. So these are the 5 bills that we're paying attention to. We hope that you keep your eye posted for that. And whenever there's an opportunity to advocate for them, to talk to your representatives and senators and encourage them to vote yes on these bills, we would urge you to do that. But of course, keep your eyes out for other things that are of relevance and of importance to you, your family, and your community members at the state level and at the local level. Again, we really hope that you are charged up and feeling ready to make some changes in Woonsocket and in the state of Rhode Island. This is your community, and so we want to make sure that you're able to use your voice. Don't forget, we have one more workshop in the Charged Up Civic Engagement series. So the last workshop is expanding the social action toolkit. This workshop is going to help us take advocacy and social action to the next level. So what are some new strategies and some new approaches to achieving impact and successfully advocating for change? This workshop is going to be delivered on Thursday, May 1st at 6 p.m. If you haven't registered yet, please make sure you get registered at tiny.cc/Woonsocket. Again, that's the link right there, or you can scan that QR code. We want you to get powered on, we want you to get charged up, and we want you to get plugged in. So stay connected with the Woonsocket initiative. After the civic engagement series ends, don't worry, we're still going. We'll be doing personal wellness and family health, and then there'll be more to come throughout the year. We're doing this year long to make sure that Woonsocket residents have all the tools and skills and resources they need to build healthy lives for themselves, their families, and for the community. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you all for watching. And again, we encourage you to stay connected with the Watch Coalition. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions, comments, thoughts. Engage with us on social media. We want to hear from you. And we encourage folks to join our village. Like Kristina said, this is about organizing and building our base and doing this together. Let's not be divided. Let's not run scared, but let's organize and come together. So we are excited to bring more people into our network. Same thing with Rebuild Woonsocket. So please don't be strangers. Reach out to us, stay connected with us, and let's get charged up. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.